Alright, another DraftScience video presentation. So Stephen Bro has made some more 1 minute shit videos, and they're really shit, really bad. And it's just more proof that he can't do anything honestly, the right way, clean. Okay, he's just a filthy thinker, a filthy doer. Look at this horse shit of taking this image of me, asleep? What is this crap? I mean, it's 10-year-old nonsense. Alright, anyway. So let's read the crap first, right? Look at all this crap he wrote again. But it's all crap. Now let's just explain the experiment first. So I've pointed out that we have no experimental evidence of them ever collecting the extra kinetic energy from two things with equal momentums but different masses. So if you take things with half the mass of two objects, you have one that's half the mass of the other. And you are supposed to give them an equal force to move them, that somehow the lighter object gets twice as much energy, even though they have exactly the same momentum. So it's the analogous to a 10-ton train is the analogy. Okay, 10 tons going 5 miles an hour and 5 tons going 10 miles an hour. All right, and the idea is that momentums are equal. Mass times velocity is equal. They are, by Newton's mechanics, okay, same force, same energy. All right, by this new Leibnizian, okay, religious kook, fallacy nonsense, mv squared, and then in the 1800s they decided to put a 1/2 in front of it. By that formula, this object has twice the energy, twice as much energy. So the simple challenge was, show me one experiment where they actually collect this energy and show that the 8-pound bowling ball, okay, going say 16 miles an hour, has twice as much energy as a 16-pound bowling ball going 8 miles an hour. Show me any evidence of this reality, that these two things are not equal, that this one has twice as much energy. All right, so that's the challenge. Nobody's addressed it. Nobody's linked to anything. There's no evidence of it taking four gallons of gas to go 60 miles an hour and 1 gallon to go 30. There's no evidence of this kinetic energy either in the inputs or in the outputs. So clearly with the 8-pound bowling ball, I made the example and I said, well, what happens with an 8-pound ball going 16 miles an hour? Well, right from the start, or a 16-pound ball, okay, going 8 miles an hour. What we do know from physics is that the first pin this one hits, right, the first pin this one hits, what's going to happen to the pin? Well, the 16-pound ball is only going 8 miles an hour. It can't make the pin go any faster than 8 miles an hour. That's the fastest it can go. So this pin, in optimum circumstances, leaves at 8 miles an hour, and we'll say the pin weighs 4 pounds, so we'll just say 8 times 4. So it used up a certain amount of the kinetic energy of the bowling ball. Now the bowling ball will be 32, okay, momentums, okay, lower. So it's going to lose 32 from 8 times 16, which is some sort of number. Yeah, I don't know it off the top of my head. But anyway, you just minus the 32, and that's what the bowling ball has to give the next pin. And the next pin, and the next pin. So you take it right off of this, so technically it's going to lose a little bit of velocity, okay, because it can't lose mass, so it has to lose it from its velocity. So say after it hits the first pin, now it's only going 6.5 miles an hour. So the next pin can only go 6.5 miles an hour. Okay, but the first pin did go the first pin did go the full 8 miles an hour. All right, now if I have an 8-pound ball, what happens? Right, I got the same amount of kinetic energy to use. Okay, they both have a certain number, mass times 8 times 16. All right, but this time now the 16 velocity. So the 8-pound ball will give the first pin 16. So it's going to be 16 times 4. Okay, so now it's going to be 64. That's a lot more energy the first pin got. But now the ball lost a lot more energy too, because the 16 is going to be knocked down to 12. All right, it's going to take a real hit. And then the next pin's going to leave, even it'll leave faster than this pin, no doubt about it. It's still going to leave faster. But guess what? It's going to run out of energy pretty quick because it's giving away big giant pieces of it at a time. big pieces of energy. So at 12 miles an hour, we got 12 times 4. So that's still a lot. It's a lot more than 32. Well, not a lot more. It's 48. Okay. But now we're down to 8. So now we're down to just 8 miles an hour. By the third pin, this one's getting rid of the same amount of energy that this one got rid of. And now it's going to degrade in its capacity to give away energy because it doesn't have the reservoir of any mass, where this one has the reservoir of mass. So because this one only has 8 pounds of mass, and this one has 16, you can clearly understand that the 16 means it's going to go down slower, at a slower rate. The velocity will reduce at a slower rate because it has more mass to keep its number up. It's multiplied by 16 every time. This one's only multiplied by 8. So by the third ball, this number is going to be even lower. You know, it's going to drop down precipitously, like to 5, and then to 2, and then to 1, where this one will drop much slower. So in the end, the point will be is that they'll give pins exactly the same amount of total momentum. These numbers, if you add them all up, these numbers will all equal the same amount. So whatever it is, 164, well, that's what this one will equal. Now that's what this one will equal. Yes, this one will be, the 8-pound ball is going to look powerful to start because it gives you this huge number, okay? But that's only one pin, okay? So, and it's going to run out of energy really precipitously fast because it just doesn't have any reservoir. 8 is a tiny reservoir of mass. So what you have to do in this experiment is measure, obviously you're going to measure the total velocity of all the pins hit by the ball, and then you'll know what the ball was able to induce into the world, what it gave the world. And those numbers will equal each other. Okay, this one will not knock down twice as many pins. That's why no professional bowler in the history of professional bowling has ever used an 8-pound ball, because it doesn't work. It doesn't produce more pin action. It doesn't create more anything. All right, in the end, you get the same amount of momentum out. All right, so that was the challenge. And we'll play this piece of shit. We'll read it first, but it's just obviously doesn't pay any attention to the actual physics. He doesn't care about the actual physics, doesn't care about science, doesn't care about having any kind of rational discipline. He just cares about making these buffoon videos. And that's it. So he's obviously shamed himself again, and everybody who keeps supporting him is just shaming science because these experiments are crap. Okay, Stephen Bro, email. Oh, yeah, great. This is one of many proofs of kinetic energy. So he's saying he's proving it with this experiment. A 1-minute video, no data whatsoever, nothing. I have provided for Gary. Where did you provide it? It's a 1-minute video you posted on your channel. You haven't provided anything. Okay, DraftScience, AK, whatever. Since he began his crusade against Physics Girl, so there was no crusade. She made a terrible video. An absolutely horrible piece of shit as a video, saying that somehow kinetic energy isn't conserved, something you argue it is. She was arguing it isn't, and frankly, I don't know why you think it's a good video. And clearly arguing that somewhere there was a whole bunch of deformation and all this other crap, and there's absolutely no evidence was any of that stuff. Where did the trains break into pieces and all kinds of catastrophe happen? Where was that in the scenario at all? How can you 100% transfer the momentum, all right, that is not use any of its energy, not hit any pins, no pins left, nothing happened, no transfer of energy, and yet you transferred half the energy. You lost half of it. You transferred it 100%. 100% of the momentum goes into the train, yet you lose half the energy. It's nonsense. It's imbecilic nonsense. No explanation of how that could possibly make any sense. So Emile de Charlotte, okay, clay experiments that she stole from somebody else, let's understand, okay? She didn't do it. The clay experimenter, she wasn't a clay experimenter. She merely duplicated somebody else's experiments from another country. She duplicated his experiments. She didn't invent any of this garbage. Who contributed to our understanding of kinetic energies? Who was defending, let's understand, who was defending a formula that was 100% wrong. So let's understand, the clay experiments proved, okay, an even more glaringly inaccurate definition. Okay, Her theory was mv squared. That's the science she proved. And for 100 years, this completely wrong, okay, 1/2 goes in front of it. It was 100% wrong. If they said it was 200 joules, we say now in modern physics says it was only 100. That's how far off it was. And he thinks she proved something. Well, she proved science is obviously garbage. I mean, this is like saying a Tyrannosaurus is a Brontosaurus. I mean, these are huge differences in the truth value. Gigantic error. And he's still defending it. I mean, what sense does this make? He's still defending what was overtly wrong science. Bad science. It was the wrong answer. And wrong by a lot. Not wrong by a little. Wrong by a lot. 1/2 is a lot. And others he deems to have been only supporting KE theory because of their dislike of Newton. Well, it's clear they didn't like the atheistic, non-human centric, non-human glorifying physics that was coming out of people like Descartes and Newton. Fact. Okay. I mean, historical fact. Go look it up. You won't find anything at all explaining how Leibniz was anything other than a religious kook. Monads, solitons. This should be the foundation of modern science. Monads and solitons. Okay, and we're rich enough to play with science. Yeah, and propagandize. They're rich enough to get published. It's not good science. It's garbage. It's no better than you listening to Elon Musk and these other douchebags, these fucking billionaire scientists. They don't know any science. They buy it. All right, hence he calls kinetic energy silly girl physics. So this is just so old. Okay, but it's the truth. I'm just sorry. It just happens to be that one of the most famous female first innovators in science was a pretty shitty scientist. Just happens to be. She had an obvious bias, and she did a bunch of experiments that can't be duplicated. That's pretty bad physics. All right. Here we have the equivalent of a 10-ton train going 5 miles an hour and a 5-ton train going 10 miles an hour. So here in this 1-minute video, yeah, right, with a generator on the wheel. So he actually does the experiment, but doesn't do it the way you have to do it, which is you have to collect the total energy. You can't just collect the instantaneous energy. You have to collect it into a capacitor or something. So you fill a capacitor with the electricity, and you see which one generates more electricity in the sense of which one filled the battery the most. All right, and your theory says the lighter one does twice as much. It puts into the capacitor twice as much energy. That's your obligation to prove. Twice as much energy. As Gary has been insisting for 6 months or more. I'm still going to insist it because your evidence absolutely sucks. As with all your experiments, it's underdone, way undercooked. You're doing it with no scientific discipline. You're providing no fucking information at all. You're just a horrible pseudoscientist, propagandist, weaselly, shit-talking, resentful, petty, emotionally disturbed asshole. Okay. We'll light the same number of light bulbs in each case. So that's not even the right way to say it, but obviously that's the point. The total amount of light being produced is the argument. Clearly any idiot could understand that. It's the total number of photons it's going to be able to produce. Alright, I freeze framed the pictures of an instantaneous, so he freeze framed the 8-pound ball hitting the first pin, and because when it hit the first pin it transferred 58 momentums, okay, and the 16-pound ball only transferred 30, whatever the number was, you remember, 32. So because it's more than twice as much that it transfers to the first pin, therefore it keeps doing that, keeps transferring more energy through the whole process, when no, it doesn't. It runs out of energy much faster, and every one of us know that from personal experience. The heavy thing keeps on going. That momentum is more durable than the light thing. The light thing hits you, it can give you a smack, but that's all it's got. The heavy thing can keep pushing you and pushing you and pushing you. Alright, freeze frame the pictures for it's easy to see the faster, lighter train illuminates the surface, whereas the slower, heavier train does not illuminate it at all. So again, he's just going based on the instantaneous brightness at the beginning. It has nothing to do with the argument being made about the total energy you will collect from the object through the process of applying a counter force. The idea is to say how much counter force is going to have to be applied. The counter force will be applied by the generator, and you're just saying how much energy does it total take. Okay, how much energy does it potential, and what can it deliver? How much energy can it possibly deliver? And he said this is just the same thing as somebody saying 3 pounds of bananas can deliver twice as much energy as 3 pounds of tomatoes. No, it can't. Alright. I had to film it in the dark to make it easy to see how much brighter the lamp is shining in the twice velocity. So again, the critical flaw is going to be that he just doesn't want to pay attention to real physics. The argument isn't who makes some light bulbs burn brighter for a shorter amount of time. That's not the argument. The argument is total energy produced. Total energy it's capable of delivering. Alright. Half mass instance. Despite having the same momentum as the half velocity twice mile case, which Gary wrongly guessed, so I didn't wrongly guess, this is just more whatever, would do the same work. It's clearly an obligation. If you believe momentum is correct, if you believe Newton knew what he was talking about, then you aren't guessing. Okay, you're going with somebody who knew what he was talking about. Saying we have no proof, no evidence whatsoever for kinetic energy. So he says he's now proven it. With this crappy experiment, he proved that you produce more total energy from the 5-ton train going 10 miles an hour than you get total energy from a 10-ton train going 5 miles an hour. He says he proved it with a shitty, lousy, rotten piece of shit experiment. I don't think so. I don't think any honest person who wishes to defend science would say this is really great what Stephen's doing. These shitty pseudoscience style, flat earther style crap videos are really, really great for the cause. You're really doing great things for science by doing shitty clay experiments. By doing exactly what got science into this mess in the first place was deception. Ken Wheeler style deception. And that's all this is. Thank you for watching, listening, and your support. Yes, support to do what? To propagandize some more for wrong theory. Okay, he is very slippery customer, very crafty. See all this bullshit? No, I'm just sitting here making honest videos about things. I'm reporting what I actually see, and I actually play people's videos. Unlike you, you quote mining little weasel. You know, you coward, you fucking coward. He's answered no questions at all. He doesn't explain why he doesn't tell Professor Lewin he's wrong. He believes Professor Lewin's wrong, but he won't tell him that. Why? Because he's a coward. Okay, he doesn't want to stand up for anything. He's not standing up for science. And far more dishonest than most people suspect. Again, yes, well, I suspect that most people are sacks of lying shit. Okay, and so, yes, in the liar's opinion, I'm a liar. And that's a badge of honor, frankly. When the criminals think I suck, that's perfect. I'm doing very good then. Alright, that's as good a proof as you need that you're doing a good job, is when the liars don't like you. I make these videos in the hope of persuading him to stop misleading people, and this video is just a big pile of lying propaganda shit. Okay, let's say it again. 1 fucking minute long video.
Actually show the 5-ton train, put a generator on the wheel, and you actually generate twice as much energy.
So look at the antics. 4-year-old. He's always been a retard. He always will be a retard.
Shall we do that? Put the generator on the wheel. If that's the only way he will accept this, let's do that, shall we?
It's not the only way. But you're not recognizing that there's no evidence. So you can't link me to just somebody else doing the experiment. You can't show me where it's already been done. And now you're complaining because I have a standard that says, well, you really should have evidence before you tell me it's the truth. So you don't think we should have evidence that takes 4 times as much gasoline to go 2 miles an hour than it takes to go 1 mile an hour. You don't think anybody should think that's evidence? It's evidence. We don't need any evidence. Let's just all believe it because you say so.
Like twice as many light bulbs. You don't have a single.
What the fuck? I mean, he's poning himself, isn't he? I mean, fuck.
Experiment demonstrating it.
This scaled down model of a 5-ton train going 10 miles an hour.
So this is the proof. So this is all we're gonna get. Zoom, zoom. There, I proved it. Knocked down twice as many pins. Total. No, you didn't.
10-ton train going 5 miles an hour, just like all my other kinetic energy experiments that Gary.
Yes, complete pile of shit. Just like all the others, huge giant flaws. You don't care about the real physics. You don't care paying any attention. You come up with rickety, stupid ideas about how to initiate velocity and how to, collect it. Collecting energy and producing energy. You don't care that there should be kind of rules about that kind of thing. He thinks gravity produces the same amount of force on any object. So if it's a feather or a lead weight, he thinks that gravity makes the same amount of force for both. When no, the whole reason why they fall at the same rate is because it only gives the feather a tiny amount of force because there's only a tiny amount of matter. And it gives the lead ball a whole bunch of force because there's a whole bunch of matter.
He denies I've even done. Once again, it shows that the faster, lighter train.
Okay, so is that what it shows? Or does it just show the first pin is brighter? The 8-pound ball, yes, it starts off fast, but it dies fast. Okay, and the 10-ton train has endurance, and this is what everybody knows this from real life. That's the way it works. Heavy things have endurance. Light things are they have power in the beginning, but not much durability. They don't have any staying power.
Has more kinetic energy, even though they have the same momentum. I had to film it in the dark because otherwise you wouldn't.
Yeah, duh, but who cares? Again, you didn't collect the energy. You didn't show us that the total energy, the little streak of light lasts the same amount of time. You didn't give us any indication it's the same amount of total energy expelled by the two objects. All you proved was exactly what I predicted. So there's a previous video where I pointed out the 8-pound bowling ball will make pins go faster. So he just proved what I already pointed out. That, yeah, the faster train will turn the generator twice as fast in the beginning. It's going to spin it very, very fast. It's going to produce more voltage at the beginning. But it's only a 5-ton train, so it's going to run out of momentum much quicker. I mean, can't you understand that logically? It has to be that way. There's no other way it can do it. There's no other way it can happen, right? The 5-ton train going twice as fast isn't going to automatically slow down to half the speed, is it? No. It's going to keep going faster than the beginning. But it's going to be using up a lot more of its reserves. Its momentum is going to be coming out of its velocity very quickly. Where with the heavy 10-ton train, it's not going to be coming out as quickly because it has a giant reservoir of momentum to keep that velocity number up.
Really see the bulb lighting properly. And Gary, no, I'm not lighting twice as many bulbs.
Yeah, right. You're not doing the experiment the way it needs to be done. That's the simple, like all your other experiments, you just couldn't care less about the scientific process, about the scientific method, about doing it the right way. You're just trying to sit there and say, Gary's wrong. And you don't care how you prove it. You don't care whether what your proof has any integrity as science at all. Just that it fools a moron. So, yeah, this might fool Farley. He's dumb. Steve Garvey guy, or who the fuck he is. Yeah, it might fool him. He doesn't know any physics. But anybody who's a little bit smart knows, oh, of course, in the beginning it's going to be brighter. But it's not going to be as durable.
Because how do you define when a bulb is lit? But it's easy to see when one light.
Yes, you can define when you've stored voltage and amperage and wattage inside of a capacitor. So if you hook a capacitor up, why don't you put the energy into a capacitor, and then you can show us that the 5-ton train actually stored twice as much energy for stopping. that somehow it doesn't give away the energy the way I described. That when things are losing their velocity, that is, they're encountering a counterforce, like hitting a pin, they don't give the pin their momentum. That's not what really happens in the real world, even though you have to know that's what happens. Right? I mean, the Newton's cradle kind of just proves it to you. Obviously, something has energy, and it gives it to something else. It's just kind of obvious. And it gives it full measure of its momentum. It doesn't give anything special away. There's no special extra added energy. There's just your momentum, period.
Shines a lot brighter than the other. You can see it illuminating the surface. I freeze framed it so you can see.
Now, you can't see shit, right? So, but again, it doesn't mean anything because again, he didn't collect the total energy, and all he's proving is that 8-pound balls, the first pin they hit goes away faster. That's not the argument. The argument is, does the 8-pound ball knock over more pins? And the fact is, it doesn't.
It's illuminating the surface, whereas the slow, heavier train doesn't illuminate it at all. Thank you for listening, folks. Bye.
Yeah, so for some reason he thinks this is worthy of being in the Veritasium contest. That's why he made it 1 minute long. So he thinks this is good science. And it should be held up as really good science. He proved that there's more energy in the faster, lighter thing. Okay, even though he didn't collect the energy and he didn't really measure the energy. He just says, well, the first pin left brighter. That's all we saw, right? And you know and I know that LEDs don't go off right away, right? So when you're lighting a bulb, the bulb stays giving off photons for a little while after, you put in the energy, because it's basically a response to heat and different things that just take time to processes that take time to dissipate. And so that's all you're seeing. And I'm sure his camera doesn't have enough, the exposure on his camera isn't quick enough to pick up, flashing light. Just like we don't see the fluorescent bulbs flickering at 60 cycles a second. I don't see these LEDs flickering at 60 cycles a second. But they are. So they're permanently on from what I can see. And the same thing happened to his camera. So the flare from the bright one popped onto the camera, period. Stayed there for a little bit too long, okay? And that's it. That's all you're seeing is a memory. But he didn't measure the actual energy, and that's what the evidence requires. We're not talking about does the 5-ton train going 20, let's say, 10 miles an hour, does it hit you harder? Okay, because it's going faster. Of course it does. The initial impact will be harder. It will be faster. There's no denying that. The argument is, does that mean does it have more total energy? When you take away all of its energy. If it hits a person, the 5-ton train going 5 miles an hour, you run over a human being. You do understand that if I do that with a 10-ton train, you do know that the 10-ton train is going to lose less energy to the impact. You do know that, right? Than the 5-ton train did. All right. So that's enough of an argument. Just junk. So every single experiment he has done has been flawed by some simple principle he just couldn't care less about. Couldn't care to research it, couldn't care to ask somebody smarter than him, is this a good idea? Couldn't care to do any of that. Well, let's see if there's comments. Be hilarious. Nice one. Another top class upload mate. So that's the whatever whatever this bum is. I don't know what to call the people who have kids they can't support and live reckless, sloppy, ugly lives. Okay, thanks again, Michael. So this is just between him and Michael, so there's not going to be anything in there worth listening to. Let's see, I suppose if I throw all his shit back at him in one go, he's not going to be able to think straight. Oh, please. You're so uninteresting, Steve. Again, every single one of your experiments is tainted. You can't make a serious video about physics. Every one of them, I would be embarrassed to link somebody to them. Let's say you were buffooning somebody else. And I said, okay, there's one little aspect of what he did here was pretty good. I'd be ashamed to sit there and associate myself with your antics. You're a fucking clown. You're Brozo. You can't do anything. You're a retard. All right. Like a week or two ago when he started talking even more gibberish than usual about what was that. So we don't have any of Steve's answers to any of the questions asked. So he's answered none of the paradoxes, paid no attention to the Professor Lewin problem of creating extra momentum in a direction, provided no answers, didn't explain how Dr. Lincoln's description of the single impediment experiment really was the double slit experiment. None of that. We have nothing from Steve answering a single one of the complaints and the grievances made about how awful this horrible, lousy, rotten physics is, how bad the evidence is. Nothing. He hasn't explained how the Eddington experiment was pristine, brilliant physics. Really well done. Anyway, faced with the reality that his fringes weren't evenly spaced. So now he's bringing up his subject again that I had no reason to believe they weren't, and it means absolutely nothing. It doesn't change anything except my shortcut for saying where they would be spaced, and that's all it changes. It doesn't change anything about the physics. So, meaningless. Later verified by Mescamos. And again, verified in the sense that it's a pretty simple argument to make, and somebody just could have made the argument. I can again just show you every single video. I'll ask again. Show me the lecture from a single physicist. Show me the single two-slit experiment video made previous to this year where they talk about the uneven spacing. So show me that video, Steve. Show me where I had good reason to believe they were unevenly spaced. Oh yeah, that's right. It doesn't exist. All right, anyway. Yeah, no point reading this fucking crap. And him getting so flustered. So again, this is bullshit. All my videos are public. There's no fluster video. They ended up trying to solve the exact opposite problem to that I had pointed out regarding the fringe widths getting smaller when the impediment was removed. So again, just a lie. They don't get any smaller when you remove the impediment. So go ahead and do that. Go ahead and prove that the envelope changes, not the little bars. So I don't know. Let's see. Not larger, as he was trying to explain away by saying the impediment splits the fringes in half. What kind of garbage was that? So again, this was the experiment where he removes the impediment. And that changed the experiment how? Well, I'll have to go back. I don't think that was the one where he says it's the same distance. I'm just saying the outside, the furthest distance is making the smallest bars. The smallest distance is making the biggest envelope pattern. So it's the rational way to look at it. It's the way the vectors work. It's the way the math has to work. It's the only way you can draw the lines and get actual in phase and out of phase pattern. It has to work that way. All right, anyway. There have been many more stupid points in that video. Well, bullshit on all that crap. So anyway, he's not even on the subject of his own video. So he just proved kinetic energy because he, did this pristine, brilliant experiment proving that the half-mass object going twice as fast has twice as much energy. And he proved it with this steaming pile of shit. I mean, it's a garbage video. All right. My camera was frozen all this time. Well, that's not too good. Bummer. I should have noticed that. But who cares? It's a Stephen Bro video. Who cares? Really. I mean, it's so ugly already. Just having Steve in it makes it so dirty and stinking and rotten that, you can't do much else in the video to make it any worse an experience for the poor viewer. Alright, so till the next time and such. So anyway, garbage proof. Oh, yes, this has been a... what's the button? I'm hitting the fucking button. There it is. DraftScience video presentation. Until the next time and such.